Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining this session. In this session, we will be talking about turbocharging your digital transformation using integration, APIs, and AI. A bit of introduction about the presenters today. I have with me my colleague John Hosey, who is the product architect of IBM Application Integration. My name is Mithun Katti. I am the offering manager of IBM App Connect. You would have seen across your organization, all your applications need some sort of digital enablement. You want to be one step ahead of your customer, where you want to make the data available to your customers even before they ask. So it's not just your customers, you internally within your enterprise as well, you want to build digital applications which make life of your sellers easy. So you want to have data available at the hands of your seller where when they are out in the field selling your product. So how is it possible? So it's understandable that data is the king, and we want to have data as much as possible. But how quickly you build applications which enable data synchronization across all your applications? With advent of this digital revolution, we have seen that companies and enterprises have started adopting a lot of applications than before. It could be some of the legacy applications which they kept on running for many years, and now they want to move to cloud. Some of the applications which are beyond their enterprise firewall, and some of them which are managed by business partners. So how do you bridge all this data? How do you build applications taking advantage of all these varied environments? You could have seen in your organizations, some part of the organization want to move to SaaS application, some wants to build mobile application, some wants to build an application and expose that as an API for other applications to consume. So this is an inherent need to integrate all your varied application as spread across your enterprise, be it on-prem, be it cloud, be it outside your organization, which is managed by some of your business partners. So it is understandable that we need a integration platform which bridges all of these together. But the key is how quickly and how easily can you build the application. So today in our session, we are going to talk about IBM App Connect, which will help you in achieving all this seamlessly. IBM App Connect brings together the best of the existing integration technology along with the new cloud applications. So any platform which needs to cater to this digital revolution, you would want the applications to have universal connectivity to support n number of applications which are being used in any enterprise. The tooling should be as simple and intuitive as possible for the new gen developers, line of business developers, citizen integrators to start using the tool and building new applications. You want to support a lot of integration patterns, which I'll be talking in a few slides. Your integration platform needs to provide you a powerful mapping which helps you in bridging the data from one format to another. You want to transform from XML to CSV, CSV to JSON, so on and so forth. So all these capabilities should be part of your integration platform to build simple applications very quickly. Just digging a bit deeper on the platform itself. So IBM App Connect provides a simple UI. It's an award-winning UI which is completely configuration based tooling with no coding whatsoever. Within a few clicks and drag and drop, you can build your whole integration flow. You can build your flow and expose that as an API. You can transform data from multiple formats, compose an API, and manage the whole life cycle of an API. To talk a bit about the connectivity options that is provided by IBM App Connect, we have more than hundreds of pre-built applications available out of the box. These are what we call as smart connectors. The smart connectors are inherently built to understand the endpoint behavior. It understands the limits. It understands how to optimize the API calls to the application. So we have more than 100 plus applications already available on the palette. And then we call something called as templates are pre-built application flows which you could directly import and start using it. My colleague, when he is demonstrating a demo, he will just show how you can import a existing template and start using with them. So as I spoke about the multiple ecosystems which are being developing, right? So there are ERP systems, there are CRM systems, there are technology endpoints like databases, FTP, etc. So IBM App Connect provides connectors to all this ecosystem, ranging from marketing, CRM, HR, ERP, databases, legacy applications, MQ, so on and so forth. And also it caters to various data formats and protocols, as I mentioned, JMS, HTTP, SFTP, XML, CSV, etc. In the next slide, we will see how various multiple integration patterns are being addressed. In any integration platform, you need inherently several sort of multiple patterns which can be supported. There is a traditional data sync or data copy scenario where you want to move data or migrate data from one system to another, which is covered by the data sync or bulk data movement pattern. And you have new gen applications which need something called as event driven pattern, where, for example, if you want if something happens in one application, do this in another application. For any new lead generated in Salesforce, take this action, send them an email with a promotional discount, etc. So this is called as event driven pattern, and App Connect supports this pattern. You can build your whole application flow as an event driven application. The one of the key component of integration is APIs. How do you expose your APIs to various departments, various other applications to consume them? So App Connect provides you capability to build an application integration flow as an API itself. So you just build your flow and then expose the API, which can be consumed by other applications. And you also have new generation applications coming along, like which are very cognitive in nature, chatbot applications which take inputs from the user, mash up data from various sorts, and then present it to the end customer. So that falls under a data enrichment category. IBM App Connect has capability to match data from several endpoints and present it to the customer. I want to hand over to my colleague John Hosey, who will be walking you through the three simple demos which he has built within few minutes.
Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to take you through 3 demonstrations that will help you to get a feeling for the user experience, capability and types of use cases that are typical with App Connect Professional. Throughout these demos, we follow the story of Cassie and Tia. Cassie is a marketing professional who is really good at thinking up new ideas for nurturing leads, and Tia is a colleague of Cassie's who has technical skill set and helps Cassie to automate some tasks to maximise the impact of Cassie's innovation. As we will see, there are many cases where the automation involves moving data between applications, and Tia uses App Connect Professional to do that. In the first demo, Cassie has a great idea of sending a welcome email as an automated response to new leads being added to her CRM system. So let's watch Tia in her App Connect dashboard as she creates a new event-driven flow. After naming her flow, Tia starts to look for the event that she wants to trigger the flow. You can see the broad range of applications that can be the source of events, and Tia selects Salesforce. We see the most common events that Tia can configure, and new lead is the event that she chooses in this case. Now that Tia has chosen her event, she needs to choose at least one action to perform when that event occurs. Again, we see a vast array of applications where actions can be performed, but Tia is going to filter the set down by using the search control to make it easier for her to find the create email action. In the configuration of the email action, there should be no surprise that Tia needs to provide a to, a subject and a body. In this case, the to field is going to be a copy of the email address that was entered for this lead in Salesforce. For the subject and body, Tia will just enter some free-form text. Cassie would like the email to be personalised, so Tia copies in the person's first name from the Salesforce record. And with that, we have a complete integration flow. Just one trigger and one action, but that is always needed. After the flow has been started, Tia can test it out by switching to the Salesforce UI and creating a lead, and then waiting for the email to arrive in the target inbox. Almost immediately, the new lead object was detected, and App Connect has copied the name and email address fields from Salesforce to create that email. But that was too easy, and Cassie has had another bright idea. How about we respond to leads that have been rated as hot with some additional prompting? We could offer them a discount to the trade show that we are hosting next month in Hampshire. Adding some conditional actions is actually a really easy thing to do with the if-else construct in App Connect, and Tia can quickly refactor the flow by drag and dropping the email action onto that conditional branch and then adding the new text. We see here that she can even add a second else if branch for the case of warm leads who also happen to live in the same city as the conference. In that case, they will get a different email and will only be offered a 10% discount. She would then add other email actions to the branches for the other conditions, copying the text and making the required changes. Now the flow is fully functional, and Tia could now review this with Cassie. But Tia is not yet completely satisfied. She has worked with Cassie for a long time, and she knows that if this is successful, Cassie will expect it to continue to deliver value in months to come. And Tia is not happy about how she has hard-coded the details of the trade show in the integration, so she decides to future-proof it. Luckily for Tia, the calendar system that holds a record of all upcoming trade shows publishes its interface as an OpenAPI specification, and once Tia has imported that to App Connect, she can use it to look up the next trade show in the calendar. As Tia reviews the flow with Cassie, Cassie has another idea of dropping a message on Slack to make sure that the promotions team get notified of all hot new leads. Finally, Tia feels the need to refactor the flow once more to reduce duplication and make future maintenance easier. Rather than have 3 email actions on the 3 separate branches with much of the text in common, she's going to place a single action on the common branch after the if-else branches converge. She uses a placeholder for the trade show invitation, and then she configures the mapping at the end of each of the if-else branches to populate that placeholder with the relevant text. And in the case of leads that do not match any of those 2 conditions, it's just left blank. So there we have a really simple trigger action integration with some added features and refactor to improve future proofing and maintenance. In the first demo, we saw the automation of emails informing new leads about upcoming trade shows. After such trade shows, Cassie tends to run specific marketing campaigns targeting people that her staff spoke to at the trade show. The company that facilitates the trade show provides each booth with a set of scanners, handheld devices that the staff can use to scan an attendee's badge and enter a brief description of the conversation they had with that person. The scanners will then store the person's detail, address and so on as a record in a hosted database, and Cassie's team is given access to that database. Cassie needs Tia to help move all of that data from the database into Salesforce as a set of lead records so that she can target those leads from the marketing campaign that she manages through Salesforce. Tia starts by creating an event-driven flow. She gives the flow a meaningful name, and then she decides how she wants the flow to start. The event that will trigger this flow is a new campaign being created in Salesforce. And logging onto Salesforce and creating a campaign is something that Cassie would typically do after the trade show has ended. As soon as Cassie has created that campaign, Tia's flow is going to trigger a batch process to extract the data from the database. In this case, the leads database table. Tia wants this flow to run not just as a one-time integration, but also to support future campaigns. The same database is used for every conference, and there's a good chance that there will be records in there from previous conferences. So she's going to conditionally select records where the conference field matches the field in the Salesforce campaign object. For every record extracted, the following set of actions will be performed. First thing is to create a lead object in Salesforce. This is where we get our first look at the data mapping experience. It can be as simple as entering values for cells in a web form or spreadsheet. The auto match button gives Tia a head start by finding source fields that have similar names to the target field. She can then use the pop-up or type ahead to manually find the less obvious matches. She can even very easily join together several fields into one, as we can see here with the street and address fields. There is a whole library of functions that can be applied to transform the data. And in fact, there is a complete functional programming language available here, so that Tia can progressively unleash as much power of the platform to meet her needs as she's willing to invest. Kind of like you might progress to defining functions and pivot tables in your spreadsheet application. That programming language is called JSONata, and we'll do a deep dive on that at a later time. But for now, remember that one of Cassie's requirements is to assign a hot, warm or cold rating to the leads based on the notes taken by the staff at the booth. That kind of analysis is just beyond the capability of the JSONata language. So Tia reaches for the Watson natural language classifier service to do that cognitive enrichment for her. She passes in the lead text field, the notes that were taken by the staff on the booth, and Watson service will classify that text based on some rules that were pre-programmed, and it's easy for Tia to then map that classification into the Salesforce object as the rating field. And once the lead has been created, it needs to be associated with the campaign. That requires the use of a less commonly used object in Salesforce. Previously, we saw the small set of Salesforce objects that are most commonly used, but there are hundreds of object types in Salesforce, and we can easily click through to access all of them, whether they are out-of-the-box objects or custom defined. The campaign member object defines a relationship between the lead and the campaign, because the same lead could be triggered by more than one campaign. So the mapping is simply the IDs of the lead and the campaign plus an initial status. As the campaign progresses, different leads will respond at different times, and the status field on the campaign member object can be used to keep track of that. So that concludes the set of actions that will be performed for every record. Once the campaign has been populated with all leads, Cassie needs Tia to mark the campaign as active so that it will be visible to other people in Cassie's team. The darker shaded area on the right is where Tia can define the batch completion actions. Using the update or create campaign action and filtering by the campaign ID will update the campaign that triggered this flow. Name is a required field, even on update, so Tia copies it across from the trigger, and the only other thing to do is to set the active field to true. The flow is now complete. It will trigger based on a new campaign and then start a batch extract process to populate that campaign and then mark it as active. Tia can now start the flow. On the App Connect dashboard, we see that the flow is running and ready for Cassie to trigger it. When Cassie logs on to Salesforce, she can create a campaign object. The only thing she needs to be sure to do is to set a value for that conference field and then sit back. In the background, App Connect gets busy. We see the green tick here to indicate that the flow has been triggered, and we see the batch in progress indicator, so we have a real-time view of the status of the flow. Once the batch is complete, Tia can see from the summary that it successfully processed 2,000 records. Cassie would then see those 2,000 leads added to the campaign with all of the details copied over. Double clicking on a couple of those leads, we can see the ratings have also been applied. Watson has classified this as a cold lead based on the description, just looking. Solid interest but budget for Q1 in question, likely Q3, has been giving a warm rating. And this lead has been rated as hot with came back twice, strong interest in 5000 series generator. So Tia has created a flow that will be triggered every time a new campaign is created, and will run a batch extract of all relevant leads from a DB2 database, cognitively enrich the data and load it into Salesforce, and finalise the process by setting the campaign to active. What we see here is a seamless blend of an event-driven integration pattern and a batch data copy pattern. So, the trade show was a success with 2,000 leads generated. Of course, Cassie had predicted this and had the foresight to ask Tia for some help to prepare for optimising the response to those leads. She asked her to make one enhancement to the introductory email. Rather than just offer the leads the chance to attend yet another trade show, how about we actually try to get them to buy a product? Tia remembers an API she built for another project that allows the regional warehouses to publish information about surplus stock levels. So it would be relatively easy to reuse that API and offer the lead a significant discount on some of the product lines that are currently surplus in the warehouse local to the lead. The existing API that Tia is going to use is actually an integration between a long-standing SOAP-based web service and the new SaaS-based ERP on Oracle NetSuite. Being an integration-based API, Tia built this in App Connect as a flows for API, so we can take a look at it before she reuses it in her introductory email. Straight away we notice a significant difference between a flows for API and other integrations. The first and foremost aspect is the data model. A good practice in API design is to start with the definition of the data model that you want to publish on the API, and that is what Tia has done here. The data includes everything that a consumer of the API would need to know to get value from the knowledge of the discounted surplus items, but nothing else. The second thing to consider in our API is the operations that the API should support on those data objects. Here we see that the retrieve with filter operation has been implemented, and it supports a filter on the region field. This is exactly the query that Tia needs, so it is perfect for her. Tia could have chosen to implement other operations such as create, update, etc., but she wanted consumers of this API to have read-only access to the data. So let's take a look at the implementation of the retrieve. The implementation is just a flow, very much like the event action flows that we saw earlier. The biggest difference is that there is a request message and the API must return a response. But in between those, Tia just wires up a sequence of actions and logic constructs. In this case, we see that she is calling a SOAP-based web service to get the details of stock levels from the local warehouses, and then iterates over each item of surplus stock using the for each construct and enriches that information with details of those specific products by a lookup on her NetSuite ERP system. The mapping at the end of the for each branch aggregates the data from that SOAP web service and the data from NetSuite, and finally she maps the resulting array into the data model for the response. The final significant aspect of a Flows for API is the Management tab. Here we see that Tia gets some control over who is calling that API and some insight into the volumes. APIs are built for reuse, so it is really important to see and to control that access. Tia can choose to use the embedded API management capability that we see here, or export the API definition to a complete API management solution like IBM API Connect. And that is just a click away if she is using the API Connect service on IBM Cloud Platform, but she can also easily export the API definition as an Open API standard format, and then so import it into an API gateway outside of IBM Cloud. This is the developer portal, which is where Tia can publish details about her API, and the consumers of that API can learn how to call it and even try it out, just as Tia is doing here to give her a quick sniff test before using it in her flow. And we can see that when given a value for the region filter, the API returns 3 items of stock that happen to be in surplus supply in that region, with some details enriched from the product catalogue. To make the API available to her other App Connect flows, she can go one step better than the developer portal and publish it into the catalogue in her IBM Cloud Platform organization. Creating an API key to secure access and then taking a copy of that key for herself, she's now ready to use that in her flow. Now when she looks in the catalogue, even from a different App Connect instance, she will see that it is just as easy to connect to that API as any other built-in application. And once connected, she can use the API in her flow. You should recognise the new lead introduction flow that we saw Tia create in the previous demo. Tia can now start to address Cassie's new requirement by first making a call to that API, using the address from the Salesforce lead record to set the value for the region filter. The data from that API is now available for Tia to use to create a new variable which she names surplus stock offer. And finally, Tia can enhance the email sent to those leads with the contents of that variable. After starting the flow one more time, we can see Tia testing the final end-to-end solution by creating that same hot lead in Salesforce. And back in the email inbox, we see the data about the discounted stock has been correctly added to the email. So this concludes Cassie and Tia's success for now, with many of the thousands of leads captured at the trade show now getting emails about heavily discounted stock items. Cassie's ready to move on to her next big idea with the help of Tia and App Connect.
Thanks, John, for those wonderful demos. Next in series is a session on Jan 14th by Ben Thompson and Amy McCormick. The session will be on App Connect Enterprise, where you'll learn more about how you can modernize your integration platform using IBM App Connect Enterprise. And then myself and John will come back in February and dig a bit deeper on technical concepts of App Connect, more on JSON ATA. So how can you utilize the powerful tooling to do complex use cases? Hope to see you all in the next series. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your time.